Bob Butterworth, the living definition of public servant in Florida, resigns from the state's toughest appointed job. And CFO Alex Sink still trying to put on the run from his job, the man whose office let thousands of criminals work as mortgage brokers. All that this week on Power Play with our guests, Steve Bousquet, Capitol Bureau Chief of the St. Petersburg Times, and Mark Caputo, reporter for the Miami Herald. So Bob Butterworth, who's served in so many jobs, including Attorney General of Florida, steps down at the Department of Children and Families. Is he the best ever?
I wouldn't say that. He wasn't here long enough to know that he's the best ever, but he's certainly far and away the best in recent vintage. I mean, there's been so many troubled people ahead of that agency. It turns out that Bob Butterworth had a handshake deal with Charlie Crist, 18 months and I'm out. The guy's 65 years old, and I think he wants to make some money. So
there's no story behind the story?
Well, there probably is. Everything's kind of getting worse in Florida, so I'd imagine there's bound to be a scandal at DCF that could erupt. Whether he knows about it or not, who knows, but it's an agency that's going to face a lot of trouble, not a lot of money in the budget, a lot of needs, a lot of services, and if he's 65, he probably wants to live till he's 66.
And when he gets appointed, he's a prominent Democrat appointed by a Republican administration. Many thought that there was a ploy in doing that.
They did. The idea being that if things blow up at DCF, they're blowing up in the hands of a Democratic appointee. But it didn't happen, and Mark may have a point. I mean, there may be something about to burst loose at DCF that Butterworth and only a few others know about. However, he's strongly suggesting that the governor appoint an insider as his replacement.
And frankly, the relationship between the governor and Butterworth is reported to be very close. It seems very respectful mutually.
Yeah, I would imagine that one of the things that Charlie Crist is good at is picking people who are right for the job. And in that case, Butterworth was great for the job. But Butterworth's smart enough to know that the longer you stay there, the more you're going to rot.
So who succeeds him at DCF, the most troubled agency potentially in any administration?
I'd say it's an insider. I don't have the individual for
Is
you.
it George Sheldon?
I doubt it. I mean, George Sheldon tends to follow Butterworth wherever he goes, and Butterworth's headed south to practice law, so I'm not sure about George.
Okay, we go from one job being resigned to another one where Don Saxton, the head of the Office of Financial Regulation, CFO Sink, still wants him fired. Doesn't happen this week.
No, it doesn't happen. Crist and Bill McCollum want to give him his due. He's blamed the press, which of course is the easiest thing to do when you are squarely at fault for not having performed your job. And
well, it's your paper that broke the story. So his 40-page rebuttal, is it on point? Did you guys screw up or did they?
Well, I think the results speak for themselves at his agency. They had loads and loads of felons who were selling people these ridiculous loans. I mean, half interest only for a long time. And the reason we found out about this, the way we found out about it, Jack Dolan, our main reporter on it, had an old prisons list of who's in prison, and he had the list of who's the mortgage broker. And he compared the lists, and the first names that pop up, you got armed robbery, embezzlement. I mean, these are the people who were selling people mortgages.
All right, so CFO Sink calls for his ouster right away, stays on that message this week, doesn't get the support for it. Is she right?
Well, I'm not so sure, because Saxon is going to ride this thing out, and Sink couldn't even get a second on the cabinet to call for Saxon's resignation.
Well, she's a Democrat and they're Republicans, so
sure.
That's not a big surprise.
Well, it might have been partisan, it might not have been. There's not a whole lot of excessive partisanship that I see on the cabinet. At one point that you know the answer to, but I'll tell you what, if I was Don Saxon, I wouldn't be sleeping peacefully at night. All the Miami Herald has to do is find one more case of one new guy who got one of these licenses, and Saxon's toast.
So, as they used to say in broadcasting, Don Saxon, maybe not buying a new house in Tallahassee.
I don't know if anyone's buying a new house in this economy. You know?
Let's go to your respective power plays of the week. We'll start with you, Mark.
I'm going to go with Bill McCollum. At the cabinet meeting, he was rather forceful. Even though he's not really going along with Sink, he's certainly not going along with Charlie. There's been some tension between these two, and you saw McCollum use this felons' rights issue to kind of hammer back at Charlie. So he's kind of leveraging Saxon's misery to score a few political points against Charlie Crist. Pretty interesting maneuver. I'm going to give it to McCollum.
Steve?
I'm going to go a bit under the radar and go for one of these constitutional amendment campaigns, the one dealing with same-sex marriage. The group that opposes the same-sex marriage amendment, the Florida Red and Blue Committee, is raising a boatload of money. They raised about $500,000 in the last couple of months, and so they're going to be a force to be reckoned with on TV this fall.
That's a surprise. Steve Bousquet, Mark Caputo, thank you very much for the latest political news. Go to the Safety Review, and we'll see you next time on Power Play.